All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Floyd Mayweather Jr. rips into Vasyl Lomachenko's resume, lays it bare that he is not like me, he is not like Muhammad Ali, and he used an example of the fact that he and Muhammad Ali both won their second professional fights. That speaks volumes. Let's talk about what Floyd Mayweather Jr. said in his very long tirade that was steeped with classic, great information. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So last night on Showtime, on their YouTube channel, they had a public workout for Gervonta Tank Davis and ahead of the lead in to his fight with Leo Santa Cruz, which will be taking place in San Antonio, Texas on Halloween. Leading into that, into the actual workout, Floyd Mayweather Jr. was interviewed. And I think he talked for like 4 hours. Like no joke, man. Nah, I know he didn't talk for 4 hours, but seriously, he went in for like maybe 35 minutes, man, on topic after topic after topic. And it was skipping over here and skipping over there and coming back and going. It was all over the place. And I loved it. Loved it. Because Floyd Mayweather Jr. is a classic. Okay. Now, we can say we don't like what he does in the ring, outside the ring, and I don't like the fact the Gucci stuff that he says and a whole bunch of stuff that I don't like. But man, when it comes to that boxing ring, that is the man. So when you hear him talk about Vasyl Lomachenko and comparing himself to Ali and Vasyl Lomachenko, you are having the real deal do the comparison. Okay. Now I get on Floyd Mayweather Jr. for saying TBE because I think that's a knockoff on the greatest of all time, who is Muhammad Ali. But I've said this multiple times and definitely more recently that people have to acknowledge that Floyd Mayweather Jr. is the greatest living fighter on the planet. Okay. And it's just what it is. And he has he has accomplished more than any other fighter that I'm thinking is alive. There may be, maybe if you think Larry Holmes, there may be somebody, maybe, but I don't think that there is. I think that Floyd Mayweather Jr. very well might be the most accomplished fighter alive. So when he compares himself to Vasyl Lomachenko, dude, you can hear it in his voice. It's an insult to him. And it's been an insult to him. It's been an insult to Muhammad Ali to be comparing Vasyl Lomachenko to them. And it was absolutely fantastic to hear Floyd Mayweather Jr. say it. And he said it in multiple different ways, and it was all kind of all over the place. But if you take what he said and you listen to it and you break it up in your mind and you put the things where they're supposed to be, you put like subjects next to like subjects and listen to what he said, right? I promise you that was absolutely positively boxing gold. He got in on he didn't just go in on Vasyl Lomachenko. He went on the WBC, the franchise belts, the fact that there's all these champions. The guy really does get it in the sport of boxing. But let's talk about the Vasyl Lomachenko part. And I'm not going to call him Vasyl Lomachenko. You know, 78 was killing him with that for years. But now he's just straight up Lomachenko because all of the hype has been pulled off. But let's look at what Floyd had to say, man. First of all, it's obvious that Vasyl Lomachenko is nobody's Floyd Mayweather Jr. and should have never been considered as such. Like Floyd said, he lost his second fight, his second professional fight. He was at a point in time 1-1. That does not happen to any other great fighter that I can name. Their second fight. Now, I'm sure that there's some boxing historians that could tell me that maybe, you know, Sam Langford lost his second professional fight when there was no amateurs. But then not only that, but one of the things that Floyd said about Vasyl Lomachenko is he said, look, man, when you get to 300 amateur fights, you're a professional. There's no reason to have 400 professional fights. At the point in time where you've had 300 professional amateur matches, you are a professional fighter. You are ready to take the headgear off, and you are ready to do the sport for real. But he pointed out that Vasyl Lomachenko took another 4 years to do that. Not like him, not like Floyd Mayweather, not like Muhammad Ali. And that is just, it's just the truth, okay? And at this point in time, this is why I'm so big on do not run down the hill with Teofimo Lopez. I'm going to say this in another video. There's a difference between being a big star and a bigger star, right? When people say, oh, this is a big star, right? Who are the big stars in boxing, right? Then you say, well, who's the bigger star? Is it Teofimo Lopez or is it Devin Haney? Well, neither one of them are big stars. Neither one of them are big stars. Neither one of them are mega stars. But now one guy can't fight the other because one is bigger than the other, even though they are both, in the grand scheme of sports, both relatively small. Ain't nobody really flipping over backwards over Teofimo Lopez yet, but that might be the case. But we will wind up being is in the same situation we're in with Lomachenko if Top Rank is allowed to take this dude off into that same make-believe land that they put Lomachenko through. But look, man, Ali had it harder. He did not get everything given to him. Floyd Mayweather Jr. did not get everything given to him. I have a hard time finding anybody in the history of the sport of boxing outside of potentially maybe Primo Carnera in the 1930s that compares to Vasyl Lomachenko and the amount of privilege this man has had. People have been talking about for years how he, as an accolade, that he won a championship in his second professional fight. No, that just shows you how amazingly privileged this man is. Because nobody in boxing can possibly do enough as a professional to get a championship shot in his second fight. It is literally impossible unless you give this man a bunch of credit for things that he did that are not professional boxing. Amateur boxing is not professional boxing. It's not. They are two different sports. One has headgear on at the time that he was fighting. One has 3 rounds, and they score the fights completely different. But if you give somebody, right, credit for being a professional amateur for at least 8 years, and then put him right into a championship fight, but you are never going to give that opportunity to anybody else. And I hope they never give that opportunity to anybody else because, dude, truth be told, I believe by doing this all to Vasyl Lomachenko, that they limited the career of Vasyl Lomachenko. Because Vasyl Lomachenko is never in his career, except for against Teofimo Lopez, and obviously, and Orlando Salido, put into a place where he had to come up with a plan C. Well, actually, Orlando Salido, he switched to plan B. He had his plan A, which is change angles. Then he has his plan B, which is come towards you. Well, with Teofimo Lopez, plan A didn't work. He kept the jab out there in his face and kept changing angles with him. So all the amazing angle switches and all that stuff all went away with Teofimo Lopez. And then when he started walking towards him, Teofimo Lopez took that away by virtue of his sheer size and strength and willingness to throw punches back at Vasyl Lomachenko. And Vasyl Lomachenko felt them bombs swinging by his head and was like, I think better of this because if I get hit with that, I can go to sleep. But did he have a plan C? No. The plan C was to blame it on a shoulder injury, right? And come up with a bunch of excuses that nobody else would give Deontay Wilder. You know what I mean? That nobody would take if it was not for the fact that Vasyl Lomachenko was the golden child. Now, what I'm hoping for is that in the future, dude, that guys like Teofimo Lopez really do want to be Floyd Mayweather Jr. Teofimo Lopez said that, hey, man, people forget. I think he said that. Everybody says that now. People want to be Money Mayweather. They don't want to be Pretty Boy Floyd. Well, dude, guess what, T.O.? Pretty Boy Floyd would fight Devin Haney. Okay? Because guess what Pretty Boy Floyd did? He fought Zab Judah. He did. He fought Emmanuel Augustus. He fought Diego Corrales. He fought these. He fought tough, big, strong black fighters. He did it. Guys that had an opportunity to beat him. Fights that were not going to be easy on him. You people might think now that Chop Chop Corley was easy money, and Chop Chop Corley was not easy money for Floyd. That was a better fight for Floyd than Arturo Gatti was, and nobody ever compares Arturo Gatti and DeMarcus Chop Chop Corley. But in the end of the day, what I'm saying is this: I'm really glad Floyd Mayweather Jr. said that, because it's true. And I always celebrate the demise of a hype job, of the hype job. Now that Lomachenko has lost again, and hopefully you guys will not erase these two losses and it will turn into 14-0-2. Hopefully now, if he comes back and fights, he can improve and become a better fighter. I hate that I have to say that, but that's the truth. He's nowhere near Floyd. He's nowhere near Ali, and he should never have been mentioned with those guys until he actually earned it. That's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for your support. And with that, I'm out. Peace.